Hey, ever want to get hired at a large consulting firm but didn't know how to go about it? Well, hang around. Today we're going to jump right into it. Hi, my name's Burns Hollyman. I'm the consultant's coach, and I help consultants be successful by providing them with coaching, tools, techniques, and online learning. The consulting industry in 2019 was a roughly $160 billion marketplace. There are a lot of different numbers around this, some larger, some even ridiculously smaller, but that's the number that people tend to coalesce around. It took a huge hit, obviously, in 2020. And into 2021, we're not clear on what's going to happen. But suffice it to say, consulting firms generally outperform the gross domestic product year over year. So that's kind of some things to think about in terms of how large the marketplace is. Now, where does it occur? Well, good question. There are principally 5 major countries where most of the activity comes out of, and not surprisingly, U.S. Leads it. UK is number 2. Germany is number 3. Australia is number 4. And France is number 5. Now, any one of those large companies that we're talking about has offices all over the world. So if you're in India, you can work for an American company there, and there's some large companies in India. Same for Luxembourg or Japan. It really doesn't matter. I want to remind you, by the way, to hit like and subscribe if you find this of value. And down below, there's a bunch of resources that I think you'll find useful in learning more about the industry and the opportunities in it. I want to look at the large firms from a perspective of 4 basic categories. Now, I'm going to be doing a huge disservice to the industry by just putting everything in 4 buckets. There are many other ways to slice it and dice it, and I'm only doing this to give you some illustrative examples and also to get you a sense of where each of these firms is coming from, okay? So the first category I want to talk about are strategy firms or general management consulting firms. And these are firms like Bain or McKinsey or Boston Consulting Group. There are a number of firms in this space. And they got their roots in the early 20th century doing efficiency engineering studies for companies like Ford Motor Company and time and motion studies. And they branched out into general consulting and strategy around things like brands, business problems that seem to be imponderable to the executive suite. Now, that's who they consult to, executives, very high level in the organization, which is why they're sometimes referred to as the Ivy Leagues of management consulting. The next category are what I call full service firms. And these are firms like Accenture, KPMG, and Deloitte. There are many others, but those are the real biggies. What do? Well, they focus on doing full service everything. They started out as accounting firms in many cases. KPMG, for example, was known as Pete Marwick. And in the 60s and 70s, their clients wanted to automate their accounting systems. And so KPMG, Pete Marwick then, jumped in full bore, as did Accenture when it was known as Andersen, a name that's gone by the boards at this point. So that's what they did. And today they consult across the board, from strategy, like the strategy firms, all the way through implementation to human resources. They do merger acquisition work, just about any area that needs any kind of help from consultants, they're in it. The third category are the systems integrators. Now, what do? Well, they're very large firms that take on really large projects, and they do what their name implies. They integrate. So they're integrating business processes, organizations, along with systems, and gluing it all together into some composite solution that the organization needs. And their core skills seem to be project planning and execution of specific technologies and making them all work. And that gets us to our fourth category, which are vendor firms. Now, these are just simple consulting arms of large vendors with solutions that are incredibly complex to implement. And so they are better fitted than anyone else to do this. They train their people in the technologies much deeper than anyone else can. So we're talking about IBM, we're talking about Microsoft, we're talking about Oracle, we're talking about Dell, Hewlett-Packard, those kind of companies. And they're coming in with their vendor solution, which they want to see adopted as widely as possible, but they'll be very ecumenical and work with other technologies and act as systems integrators as well if they have to. But they're coming at it from a vendor perspective, trying to move product and services out through the door. Let's now jump in and talk about what those 4 categories typically look for. And we'll do this in the framework of it in terms of talking about the entry-level positions, the middle layer positions, and then the senior positions, partner, vice president, and so forth. General management and strategy firms. How do they recruit? Well, typically they recruit entry-level positions at Ivy League schools. That's why they're called the Ivy Leagues of consulting. I mean, they'll recruit from schools like Duke, Stanford, and so forth. Columbia is, I guess, part of the Ivy League. But they tend to look for pedigree schools. And if they're looking for technologists, they'll go to an MIT or Carnegie Mellon. But that tends to be their focus. They like to hire at the entry level as much as possible and build people and groom them up to their senior levels. So it's definitely an up and out kind of culture. At the middle level, they don't do a bunch of external hires. They tend to grow from within. But when they do, it'll be someone who's got deep expertise in an area and an area where they want to grow possibly. And the third level are partners, and it's very rare that they bring partners in. And even if they bring them in as a partner, they sort of treat them for the first year or so as junior consultants so that they learn the style of that firm, what's called the McKinsey way and the McKinsey example. All of the interviews tend to be team interviews. They tend to be extremely difficult. They're real head trips. They'll ask you questions like, why is a manhole cover round? Or how many golf balls would it take to fill this room? And they're not looking for a precise answer. What they're looking for is how you think on your feet, how you build your case, how you solve a problem, and how you do that all in real time. So the best way to get into these places is typically right out of school. And when I say right out of school, I'm talking about with an MBA. They're not going to hire undergraduates. Very, very rarely happens. They have internship programs, and that's another way in if you're an undergraduate. But they're really exclusive firms and really hard to get into. So if you get hired by one, kudos to you. The second large category of firms that hire thousands of people each year are, guess what, the full service firms. They'll hire in a variety of ways. They're not as snooty about the schools they go to. Of course, they love to go to the Ivy Leagues. Those people, though, want to go to McKinsey mostly. So they'll go to large universities, great colleges, schools that have a good reputation, and they'll recruit top of the class individuals that rank in the upper quartile typically. So if you're entry level, you'll find those firms showing up on your campus at job fairs and so forth. They'll also take resumes in from job boards, which McKinsey won't do, and Indeed, that kind of a place, Monster, and so forth. In the manager level ranks, they're typically going to look for someone who has been either at their competitors. A McKinsey would be a great hire. Someone from a systems integrator firm might be a good hire, and someone even from a technology vendor firm. Or an accounting firm, one of their competitors, if they're doing accounting, a technology firm. They're very ecumenical, as I said, in what they look at for managers. The core thing here is managing. They want to make sure you know how to manage professional service people. It's quite different from managing people in other environments, believe it or not. And at the senior partner level, large full service firms tend to be up or out type firms, but they also hire widely from outside. And they'll typically hire for two principal reasons. One, the person has this extreme knowledge of a given industry. Let's say they want to expand into an underwriting area of insurance. They'll hire someone from the insurance industry who's done that. It was a very senior executive. Or they'll hire someone who is in an industry segment but is really good at selling, because these firms are looking for very large deals these days. They're not interested in really small things. The next category of firms and how they hire are the systems integrators. And they're going to hire from just about all the same places the full service firms are. And remember, there's an overlap between systems integrators and full service firms in many cases. They're going to do all the same on-campus recruiting. They'll look at job boards. They're going to look at vendors very heavily. If you come from a vendor environment, that's a big plus because that's typically what they're implementing. And if you come from a business perspective, they're probably going to have you work around business processes and strategy for the overall integration that they're doing. If there were one skill I would say they really value the most, it would be project management, because that's what they do, projects, and they integrate things with their projects. So those are kind of the three categories there. They're very similar to full service firms in terms of they hire. Now, the final category are vendor firms, and these are pretty straightforward. They look for technical skills, so they're going to go to the MITs of the world. At the entry level, they're going to hire people that have majors in IT, obviously, because we're talking about vendors in IT primarily here. And at the middle level managers, very similar. They're also going to look for great project management skills and familiarity with their technologies or one of their competitors' technologies. In both the entry and middle level, they're going to train you very deeply on their technology solutions because that's why people are hiring you. They want you to implement their very complex technology for them, and that's why they're coming to you. At the senior level, they're going to typically hire someone who's really good at selling. I don't know why it is, but vendors really value salesmen. It probably comes out of their software, hardware selling tradition. So that means that for senior people, you can come up through the ranks, which is fine, or be senior at one of their competitors and they'll just hire you across. It happens all the time, and that's how they hire the most. And across all of these seniors levels, I should mention, they tend to use headhunters the most or personal contacts. There you have it. We've covered the entire industry in just a few minutes, and we've talked about where they're coming from and what they're looking for in new hires. Obviously, I can't do it justice in this amount of time, but there's a bunch of links below, and if you like, hit like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I'll be doing a lot more videos on this topic in very focused areas. So until then, I'll see you around. See you on the other side.